Looks like more chaos is in store for the region. So,
Yep. Iran shot down a helicopter, and now the United States decided to bomb them all over the place.
Nope, I stand my ground. We are so fine.
I hope
There
you're
will
right.
be a
Mario has been optimistic, quote unquote, since like the first month of the war. I have been pessimistic since the first start of the war. I've said this will last like I've said July, August is when it ends. So I'm not optimistic, and I've been right.
deal. There will be a deal.
Inshallah, as my Muslim friends say.
We should start making bets. We should start making wagers. I have one of my guests is like a regular trader. Me and name Robert Barnes.
I was just on with Viva. I was just on with his buddy Viva.
Yeah. Well, he's a pink. I'll get his buddy. He's a good guest. I don't know him.
Yeah, he's good. He's smart. He's a lawyer. He's not really foreign policy, but he's definitely good for culture and some of the legal stuff. He's funny. He's a good guy. I like him. But him and Barnes co-host the podcast together occasionally.
All right, shit. We have bad news.
Ah.
Yep. So we know that an Apache helicopter was downed.
Yep.
Yes.
We know that Trump initially downplayed it, but then said he'll retaliate.
Yep.
Some people doubt the helicopter was even downed by Iran. They say there was a malfunction and Trump is using it as an excuse just to attack Iran.
The more important point is if you have a helicopter goes down, both the pilots, we got them both back safely. So no U.S. servicemen died. So Trump could have said, oh, it was a malfunction, an accident, and nothing to do with Iran, and played it down, and there wouldn't have been the need to retaliate. And if he was on the verge of a deal, that's what you would do. And he had the choice. He had the choice when this helicopter go down. Say Iran shot it down and bomb Iran, or pretend it's an accident. Well, regardless of what the truth really is. Pretend it's an accident, and then you don't need to retaliate. And that's good for diplomacy. He chose war.
Others are saying it was down. Yeah. Others are saying it was down, and Trump has to respond to show force because Iran has escalation dominance, and Trump's starting to look weak, unlike the Israelis, which retaliated strongly. That's my theory, so I'm kind of adding to it. There's multiple possibilities here. Then the Americans decided to attack wave one. It didn't seem that significant. My last guest said it was, but it was on preliminary reports.
I'm sorry, you said the American attack?
The American attack. It was not as significant.
Preliminary reports of that attack it was pretty significant. You have one helicopter shot down, they bomb multiple locations.
They hit Hashem, and they hit some IRGC command and control. It was.
It was around the coastal area.
They hit some radars. I'm sorry. Keep going. I'll.
Well, the bad news is when I said we have bad news is the Iranian foreign minister spoke. So obviously Iran will retaliate, and we can both bet on
Yes.
He said the following: our powerful armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Leave our region. Let me read the whole statement actually. I'll read from the beginning. I'll start again. Despite its threats on the battlefield, the U.S. opted to test our determination. Despite its defeats on the battlefield, the U.S. opted to test our determination. Our powerful armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Leave our region if you want to be safe. History of the Persian Gulf has many chapters on dire fates of intruding outsiders. And then he has an image of the Strait of Hormuz. On it, Photoshop the writing "Forever Persian Gulf." So this is a new Iran, not an Iran that really is keen to de-escalate. It wants to be dominant. I want to add one more piece of news to kind of reaffirm my position that was the Iranians downing the helicopter. I'm not sure if you saw this. The spokesperson of the National Security Council and Foreign Policy Commission, Ebrahim Rezai, who's a regular speaker on behalf of the Iranians, he said the following: "The naval blockade is a war operation, and we have responded to it and will respond. This is our definite and indisputable right. If the U.S. wants to react to the downing of a helicopter that was part of the war operation in our blockade, we should assume our response is definite. We will respond to any action with quick and decisive response. We kiss the hand of the fighter who dealt another slap to the devil by shooting down an American helicopter in the Strait of Hormuz." And he puts in brackets, likely martyr Nadev. He gives a name. Nadev Mahdavi. Okay, he gave the name. Yeah, he gives the name of the possible shooter, of the possible person that downed the helicopter. And we will celebrate him as a hero. So, I just think this is Iran pretty much taking responsibility for the downing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yep.
It certainly sounds like it. Ultimately, it doesn't really change what's going on. What's going on is that
And it doesn't change the calculus I mentioned before. Trump could have still pretended it was an accident, says they're full of bullshit. I mean, that's what Iran always claims to shoot down everything that anytime a U.S. aircraft goes down, they claim credit for it, even if it had nothing to do with them. So, yeah, Trump could still have pretended it was an accident if he was really interested in the negotiations.
was no deal. This was all.
Well, the White House just said there is a deal. What are you talking about?
The White House.
Reason the White House says there's a deal, even if there's no deal or no hope of a deal or hint of a deal, is the oil markets. The crude prices, they have successfully manipulated those lower for months now. And by the way, that's ending next month. My head's blocking it. There we go. See? Keeping a lid on it artificially at 100. And if there's no deal, then they might shoot up. It might be harder to keep a lid on it.
This is Iran pretty much taking responsibility for the downing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It certainly sounds like it. Ultimately, it doesn't really change what's going on. What's going on is that there was no deal. This was all.
Well, the White House just said there is a deal. What are you talking about?
The White House. Yeah. Well, it was interesting today. I just say as a preface, it was very interesting. I think Trump continues to stick the knife into J.D. Vance's back to ensure that the vice president has no shot at becoming the president in 2028, because this afternoon, around the noon hour, East Coast.
I think Vance is finished just because he never criticized the Iran war. And so he's tied to it now. And he's going to go down with Trump because of this Iran war. He seemed like a nice guy, but that's the way it is.
This time, Vice President Vance went on Fox News and he said, we've received a multi-point plan from the Iranians and the president is reviewing it and he's very favorable toward much of it. And he was indicating, Vance was, that we're going to have a deal soon, no matter what the Israelis say. And then an hour and a half or so later, this Apache incident happens and the president is crying havoc and letting slip the dogs of war yet again. On some level, you can't help but to wonder if this was really just Trump trying to, again, partly throw his vice president under the bus, who I know that he is not very fond of right now, at least because he doesn't like any idea of successor. Trump is allergic to this. I don't believe there was a deal, seriously. Maybe the Iranians were serious.
I think there was a deal. The Iranians did offer a deal. It was just a terrible deal for the United States. It was basically the deal, would be a surrender for Trump. And Trump didn't like the deal. And he's been trying to get them to change the deal, but they won't change the deal. And so it's going to continue like this, bombing each other, probably lightly. I think now that there are indications that Iran really does have a nuke now, so that actually significantly lowers the risk of a huge escalation, but just back and forth bombing, yeah, that'll continue, I think, for another month. And then starting next month, once the oil crisis truly hits, then there'll be growing pressure on Trump to accept the bad deal, which he will sometime in August. That's my timetable.
But then again, look, if the Iranians did in fact down this Apache, which we don't know and we will never know the truth behind this, but if they are in fact responsible, and it does sound like they're coming close to admitting that they did this, that indicates to me they were never really serious either about a deal. And why would they be when they're the only ones with in the driver's seat? They're the ones driving this thing. The Americans are certainly not. The Israelis are flailing about trying to hang on for dear life, but the Iranians are the ones who've demonstrated a remarkable amount of control throughout this whole thing. So yeah.
No, but Brandon, we can't say that anymore. They were showing a lot of control. But when the Iranians fire a whole bunch of missiles at the Kuwaiti and Bahraini air bases when one of their radars is hit, I'm not saying it's not justified, but that's not tit for tat. That's 1.5 to 1. They've even said we're going to respond 1.5 to 1 ratio.
Which is...
Actually, they said more than that, that you would hit 5 critical targets for every one of their critical targets struck. They've said that. And I think they're keeping to that.
Which is within the logic of escalation, though. I mean, this
They're
is
just down the helicopter. How's that?
I'm not happy about it. Those are my guys. Those are our
I'm not
guys.
saying you're happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm saying how is it? This is an escalatory Iran, and this worries me. I don't think they're going to get a deal.
I
think the Iranians are jeopardizing it.
I don't think either Iran or Israel or the U.S. are very serious about getting a deal. And I think
the sides are too far apart right now.
reason the Iranians, I think personally, on some level, not personally, I think on some level, the Iranians are fed up with dealing with the United States, which I don't blame them in some ways because this administration has been very unbalanced in how it has approached diplomacy.
We've attacked them 2 times right in the middle of diplomacy, we tell them we're on the verge of a deal, or we send them final draft of a possible deal. They get together to examine it, and then we bomb them.
Superpower. And so we don't need to be crazy all the time. We can be stable and rational, and we can be the consistent voice. And that is traditionally the role that the United States has played in whatever situation we're talking about. But for whatever reason, the Trump administration has decided that acting like lunatics that can't even keep one day from the next maintaining some kind of consistency. This isn't the Mad Bomber theory. This is just really irresponsible leadership by the White House. And so fundamentally, I think that the Iranians are probably fed up. And so I think they're also coming to the conclusion that A, they can't get a deal because they're not going to get a deal, period. I think they're realizing this in Tehran. And I think they're also realizing, hey, we're kind of in the driver's seat anyway. Why don't we try to see what going up the escalation ladder looks like now? Will it benefit us? Will it hurt us? And I think right now, I look at these strikes that we just did in Iran, and it's interesting, but I don't think it's the kind of strike that's going to break the back of the Iranians.
I don't think so. Of course not. It's not a big strike, but I have news from Irib News in Iran. They just said the following. According to one reporter, 2 water tanks in the Bamani district were struck in tonight's U.S. strikes, cutting off drinking water supplies to the area.
That's not good because they're going to retaliate then.
Yeah, I know.
No, they've gone after that's that civilian infrastructure. That's not a military target, and Iran is going to respond. Oh, damn it!
Yeah.
Hey man, can you please buy me 6 cases of water? Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're going to need it. Yeah, no, I would be very careful. No, listen. The Iranians have been very clear.
Yeah, if they could start going after desalination plants in the Gulf, then places like United Emirates are screwed.
What their red lines were.
And Mario's in Dubai.
You remember we spoke, I think, was it yesterday or the day before, we spoke about the petrochemical facility that was destroyed by Israel. The Iranians said,
not destroyed, struck, not destroyed. Trita told me it was limited damage to a limited, small.
But remember what the red line from Iran was. If you go after that sort of infrastructure, we're gonna go ham on you guys. Now here we are again going after the water infrastructure. At some point, Tehran is going to say, we're going to give escalation on our own a chance and see what happens. If anything, because the logic of the escalation, I think, from Iran would be, we can't get any headway with the Americans and Israelis. They don't take us seriously right now. Yeah. If we escalate on our own, go up to a higher level of conflict with greater stakes, and we can demonstrate, and I think they believe they can demonstrate that they can do a lot of damage at that higher level, then maybe they think they can get ultimately a de-escalation from that position. But I don't think that's going to work either. This is the whole logic of escalate to de-escalate is very dangerous because that requires your counterparty to, on some level, understand the logic that you're engaged in. And I don't think that the Iranian, Israeli, and U.S. are on the same page. And I don't think the inputs they're receiving, they're processing.
The fact that this isn't just United States against Iran, this is United States and Israel against Iran, just complicates this whole situation in the Middle East so much because Iran needs to not only make a deal with the United States, but basically they either need the United States to force Israel to abide by that deal, or they also need to negotiate with Israel. It's just so complicated.
The same way in order to make an escalate to de-escalate situation possible. I think all we're going to do is go escalate until God knows where, into the nightmare scenario you and I talked about in the last episode we did.
You talked about it and I listened. Brandon,
yeah.
But just direct question. If Iran did down it, and Malcolm Nance was telling me earlier, if Iran did strike that helicopter, I'm like, did they try? Because they could have struck the...
That was a helicopter probably involved in the U.S. effort to blockade Iranian oil exports. And so, that, as far as Iran's concerned, that helicopter is undertaking operations against Iran and is a valid target.
Hellfire missiles, they could have struck the rotors, and that would have made it highly unlikely the pilots would survive. So ask Malcolm.
I don't think that what he's suggesting is Iran might have shot the helicopter down in a way so that the pilot survived. And I don't think that, because that's too hard to do. You aim to shoot down the helicopter, and if pilots survive, fine, whatever. But to take out helicopters are very fragile things in the air, and that to shoot down a helicopter without killing the pilots is an extremely difficult scenario to try for. I mean, you hit the pilots, the helicopter goes down, they're dead. You hit the engine, and the engine dies entirely. Helicopter goes down, they're dead. So, and you hit the main propeller, helicopter goes down, they're dead. What you need to do is you either, in some cases, you can hit the engine or the tail propeller. And if you, without doing too much damage, then in that scenario, the helicopter might be able to crash land and pilots survive. So, like, damage the engine enough to bring the helicopter down, but don't damage the engine too much where it stops working altogether. Yeah, there's no way to purposefully try for something like that.
Did they maybe struck the big part, the middle of it, intentionally to make sure they don't kill the pilots? He told me he's a drone operator. He manages drone, whatever, teams and stuff in Ukraine. He managed them, supports them, trained them. Yeah. So he told me, Mario, it's not that easy to target a certain area of a helicopter. That strike on a helicopter was a strike to kill. Now,
and also, even if you strike that certain area of the helicopter, I mean, being off by a foot or two can make a difference between slightly disabling the engine and completely disabling the engine. There's no way to be that precise.
My question, if Iran did strike it, and they took responsibility for it, I don't know why I'm saying if, but I'm going to add if Iran struck it, that means their intention was to shoot to kill. Yeah. Is that not an escalatory strike?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, is they don't believe that...
Well, the Iran's position is the blockade is an act of war. Why is a U.S. military helicopter flying over the Straits of Hormuz? It is because we are trying to enforce our own blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And helicopters there monitoring what ships are passing. And yeah, if Iran can keep helicopters out of this region, it becomes much, much harder for us to do our blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Listen, whatever people in the media in the West are saying, I think we've reached a point now where the Iranians don't believe there's a deal. And so now things are going to get nasty, because now they're going to have to play for keeps. This is what I'm getting at. I believe fully that they looked at... I think what happened with the helicopter was, I think they looked at that as a target of opportunity. I don't think they set out necessarily to down an Apache. I think an Apache was near their drone, and they thought, well, screw it. Let's see if we can take this baby down. And they did. And thankfully those pilots were okay. But ultimately, this was a target of opportunity. This was part of the Iranians, I think, testing the waters to see what escalation would do, what it would look like. I think in part because they no longer believe a deal is possible. And it's actually kind of surprising that anybody in these three groups, Israel, the U.S., well, definitely not Israel, but the U.S. and Iran, that either of those two groups think a deal is possible. It's not. I said this to you before, there's no consensus here, right? I mean, look.
Exactly. The way this ends is...
Voss XGFX.
Hi, Voss. How are you? U.S. struck Iran again. Today is one of those days where missiles are flying, or were flying earlier. And they're going to fly again because Iran is definitely responding to this. So, how are you doing? Right-leaning on domestic issues, on the Iran situation. I think the war was a huge mistake. So it's not clear-cut, but on domestic issues, right. And on Iran... I think the war was a mistake that's going to end the Trump presidency. Well, that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, common sense would be, the common sense approach. Yeah, I would have considered myself centrist too, but nowadays some people on the left have moved so far left that, I guess it's... positions 10 years ago could be you're a liberal, you're now far right. That's the world where you live in today. And if you go back a little bit, I forgot entirely the point I was making.
in these three groups, Israel, the U.S., well, definitely not Israel, but the U.S. and Iran, that either of those two groups think a deal is possible. It's not. There's no. I said this before. There's no consensus here.
I was saying, the only way the positions of the United States and Iran are too far apart. What needs to happen is the oil crunch needs to happen. The oil crisis that's predicted to start in July. That's when we actually run out of reserves. Like there's no strategic reserve to release. And gas goes up to $6 a gallon. Then the rest of the world and Republicans, horrified about the midterms, will pressure Trump to cave into Iran. And that's how this ends. It will push Trump over to Iran's position. I don't see much hope before then. I watch Asmongold too, and some of his on the Iran situation, his takes are he is just uninformed. I mean, he gets. I've watched his videos on Iran. He gets his news from mainstream media. He watches explosions on Twitter, and he watches Trump speech and maybe Rubio speech. He's missing so much information. It's not even funny. Trump needs to back off Israel for a while. It seems like pressure is building from the right. Well, this Iran war is going to cost Republicans the midterms. You don't understand. Yes, they've changed a lot of things. The congressional redistricting, that's great. In normal situation, it might have given Republicans some seats. But $6-7 a gallon gas, that kills Republican in midterms. And that's what's coming in July and August. And it ticks me off because I support everything Trump's doing domestically. But he just started this war that's going to cost the Republicans the midterms. I think that Trump was tricked into the war. He was honestly telling the British Prime Minister, this will be over in 3 days. And I said, Netanyahu, yes, tricked Trump into this war. He was the one who went to Washington, did a presentation, and convinced Trump to go into war. And so, I don't think Trump is controlled by Israel, but I do think he was tricked by Israel into this war. And I think but once the war started, he's then trapped with Israel because Israel can veto any peace agreement pretty much. And also, he can't criticize Netanyahu. Because he even now, right now, Trump is claiming that he's won the war. And how can he, be on one hand, we won this war, we destroyed everything, we destroyed their navy, we're going to get the nuclear material, but fuck Netanyahu for getting me into this war. That doesn't work. So as long as he's pretending to have won the war, he can't publicly criticize Netanyahu for tricking him into it. I think with the fullness of time, once it becomes obvious to everyone that this war is a disaster, then he might start criticizing Netanyahu, but he can't do that right now. On the domestic front, maybe not going tougher in some cases, but overall, domestic policies are good. But the problem is the international side. I don't know if it's because of who he got in his administration, or because maybe he cut a deal with with, let's say, the deep state elements of the establishment in Washington. Okay, I'll do what you want internationally, but you back off my stuff domestically, maybe some type of deal like that, or what it was. But he's failed to do anything on Ukraine of significance. He's gone along with that. If only Trump adapted to an American first approach. Yep. And he's gotten more done domestically this second term than he got done his first term. So I have to wonder whether he was a deal or some type of compromise with the political forces in Washington, that he goes along with the neocons and they support his domestic policies. But some ridiculous things like going after Greenland, that And the embargo of Cuba, I mean, that's humanitarian disaster. And why did we need to do that? Yep. We'll see. But I said the day one of this war, all Iran needs to do to win is hold the Strait of Hormuz closed 6 months. And we're now 3.5 months in. They only 2 months to go, basically. And they will have achieved a victory condition of costing Republicans the midterms, which will lead to an impeachment of Trump, because that's what Democrats do. And then Iran will have caused regime change in the United States instead of Trump regime changing Iran.
Here, right? I mean, look. The Iranian goal is now, it's become very clear. Not only is it, we've now gone from Iran equals victory equals survival, which they've already achieved for the regime. They're now trying to reshape and rewrite the rules of the road in the region. They're trying to flip the regional order by making it a post-American one that, at the very least, favors multiple centers of power within the Middle East, of which they would be one major center of power. So now you already have an objective sort of escalation. It's no longer just survival. It's now dominance. They want to now dominate the region militarily and politically and economically.
Did you listen to one of my interviews today?
Yeah.
No.
And why the United States is fighting this, and why this, everyone talks about going from a unipolar world, which is like US dominated, to a multipolar world. But it's not that simple. During the unipolar moment, United States toppled lots of government. Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia. And all these places, when they topple these governments, they then flood the countries with dollars. These, like Syria, uses the US dollar. Iraq uses the US dollar. So same with Somalia, Libya. And the problem is, if it stops being a unipolar world where the United dominates everything, some of these countries, like war-torn areas like Syria, will realign themselves, maybe China, and stop using the US dollars. Now, what happens to all the currency in Syria when that happens? It goes back to the United States. Like, there's 95% of the dollars in existence are abroad in South America, big parts of Africa, and parts of Asia, like Afghanistan, dollarized too. And de-dollarization is going to create big inflation in the United States when it happens, because you're going to have billions of dollars cash flowing back into the United States, into our economy. And so it's not as simple like, okay, it's a multipolar world now. That has a consequence of a massive wave of inflation headed to the United States as countries de-dollarize. And I think that'll lead to an inflationary spiral that eventually brings down the dollar.
I listened partly to Larry Johnson's interview.
Oh, nice. Well, you missed in the paper one. He said literally, Iran shifted from survival to dominance. He literally said those exact words.
Well, look,
he must be listening to you, Brandon.
No. I'm aware of what he's saying, and I am generally simpatico with what he writes and says. I mean, I've studied Pape. I mean, I was an international relations. I don't know him, but I've read his book in school. This was many years ago, and I'm familiar with his papers that he's written. So, I mean, I agree with him on a lot of things. So, very cool that he said that. I'm kind of honored. I feel.
Yeah, he said that this morning. He literally said it today this morning.
I feel like I'm obviously on the right page then, because in the ballpark at least, because he's definitely a giant in the field, and I do read his Substack whenever I can. But I will tell you, he's right. If that's what he said, I agree with him completely. And this is what I've been saying as well to you, which is that it was originally just to survive. Now we're going to do more. I actually talked to this afternoon.
Yeah, it was original just to survive, but once they got control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they realized, yes, we can control it, then they realized there's nothing the United States can do to take it away from us. And then they think about the full implications of that. They understand that they're in the driver's seat. They also, with the help of Russia and China, their targeting of their drones is now super accurate compared to last year. And this is something that no commentators are talking about anymore. But last year, during the 12-year war, Iranians' drones used GPS for their targeting, for the coordinates. And we could jam that. It's our system. And so we could make them go 100 feet off, or that way, 200 feet off another way. And Iran realized this was a problem, so they switched to the Chinese system over the last year. And now we can't jam them at all. And they're super accurate, and that's caused all kinds of chaos. And it's why so many of our bases in the region are in ruins. And yeah, Iran is just much stronger than it was last year.
For my show, I talked to, and it'll be dropped, I'll drop it later tonight, but Dr. Arta Moeni, I talked to him for about an hour, and he said something similar. And, he is Iranian, he's Iranian American, but he's Iranian by birth. And he said that now the Iranians are now going to demonstrate to the world that they are one of the great powers, and that they basically they're gonna run the Americans, they're gonna try to run the Americans out of the region, which is already underway, or at least that's what they're trying to implement.
That's why they struck all our bases. Well, that and the fact that those bases were being used to attack Iran. But getting the United States out of the region, yes, destroy all our bases, and we're forced to leave.
So, I think this Apache strike, I think they probably had a drone in the area and they were looking for something to hit. And I think they probably were like, oh, let's take out the vaunted Apache. And they got lucky and, that it was there. And they were able to sever or damage the rear rotor, the tail rotor rather. And if you look at the way it went down, because I think RT posted a video of the helicopter going down, or at least the flames, it does look like it was a relatively...
Oh, I have not seen that video. Please show it, Mario, if you have it. Otherwise, I'll look for it later.
Controlled crash. And I agree with Larry. I saw Larry's interview with you. I agree with him that if it was totally shut down, the helicopter, everybody would have been dead. So it's a good thing that those guys got hit the way they did. But no, I think that ultimately we're in the escalatory pattern. And by the way, and this is what I talked to Viva about today, Robert Barnes's sidekick, or co-host, I should say. On there, I corrected myself. I corrected myself.
Hope he doesn't either.
Co-host. But I corrected myself. He said that it.
Even your kid is offended. Yeah. Even your kid's offended. What are you doing, Dad?
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say. You took me off track. But anyway,
about the escalatory, how this is escalating now.
Yeah. So he was saying in his observation that it just looks like the whole idea of getting a deal is completely off. It's not real. There's no consensus here.
But then how do you make of everything else that we've seen? Let's look at the positive indicators. We've got, obviously, Trump keeps downplaying everything. He even downplayed.
Yes, because of the oil markets. He doesn't want the oil to spike. Gas prices are high enough for him already. And so he's going to pretend we're going to be on the verge of a deal for the next 2 months, probably, until it happens.
This attack. He said it's nothing serious. We have to retaliate. In his post, he even said something along the lines like...
Off topic, what are your thoughts about Kamala Anthony trial? I think that the result that came in, that it was obvious to everyone that he did it. And that it was premeditated. You don't bring a knife to school. Normal people don't do that. Bring a knife to school and then you use it to kill someone. You go and you provoke them by going into their tent with that knife, and you don't leave after they ask you 15 times. Then you stab them in the chest. That's premeditated murder. So I think the outcome is good.
We have to, by necessity, retaliate. That's not how Trump usually talks if he's pissed off. He says, nevertheless, the U.S. of necessity must respond to this attack. That was his post. And then later he said, I don't know which...
No, about your previous comment, it seemed that Israel wanted to push for regime change while Trump wanted Iran to have no nuclear weapons. No, because right before Trump bombed Iran, he had a nuclear deal on the table that was better than Obama's deal. They really capitulated on the nuclear issue, Iran, right before we decided to bomb them. If all it was the Iran, the nuclear issue was all Trump cared about, he would have taken that deal. It was as good as you could possibly get. But Trump thought this would be over in 3 days. He was high off Venezuela. Venezuela, 24 hours, huge success. It makes him look like, Trump look like a genius for having pulled it off. He thought he was going to do that with Iran. I'm sure one of the factors that got us into this war is Trump's huge success in Venezuela. Like, warped his thinking, and he thought that Iran would be just as easy as Venezuela. So Trump was going for regime change. Is it over yet? You mean the Iran war is not over yet at all? It probably won't be before August. Or And to answer your question, U.S. just bombed Iran, a big round of bombing on the coast, and Iran has yet to respond to that bombing. So we're between rounds of bombing right now, and I don't expect this Iran war to be over before August. There might be another ceasefire. They might go back to more shooting. Trump is just flailing around, but yeah, I think that we need the oil crunches coming this summer to create panic in Washington around the world and to get Trump really serious about doing a deal with Iran. Yeah, but I thought Israel had finally agreed to ceasefire. I don't know, but here's the worrying thing. Iran shot down a helicopter today. Both pilots survived. So Trump, he could have said, "Oh, one of our helicopters, there was a malfunction and it went down, and that's the end of the story." Or he can say, "They shot it down, we'll retaliate." And then I think he bombed like 10 different places for one helicopter. Yeah, so he had a choice between not escalating and escalating because no one died. It was just a helicopter. And he chose to escalate, and then he escalate to the maximum possible. So it makes me, I don't think a deal is happening anytime soon. It's especially not in the next few days, given what just happened. Last thing about regime change, the reason Trump isn't talking about regime change anymore is because it's no longer possible. It's obvious to everyone that even if you bomb Iran some more, there's not going to be a regime change. We bombed them all out for like a month and a half and nothing happened. Bombing them for another month and a half won't help. So since it's not a realistic goal to achieve, he's not talking about it anymore, Trump. He's talking about the reason he only talks about the nuclear issue is because that's the only one of his objectives that he can still accomplish. Iran's not giving up its ballistic missiles, which was something he talked about before the war. There's not going to be regime change, so that's why he's focusing on the nuclear issue, because that's the one area where he could still have a win.
Media, it's not that significant. Let me see if I can find it. Well, you just said it's not that significant. I'll have to find it.
The Iranians don't agree.
Yeah, I know the Iranians don't agree, but I'm saying it shows the intent on the Americans.
I don't.
And
Yeah,
what else? I've got more to say. The White House said a deal is close. I know they've said this 68 times now, but they did say a deal is close.
And the markets today did not react very well when he said this morning, "Oh, we're 2 to 3 days away."
Below 90.
Now I'm talking. There was a major sell-off. There was a major, not in the oil market. I'm talking about the stock market. There was a sell-off.
Yeah, but that's not because of the Iran war. That's because of AI tech issue. That's all AI valuations.
I think that was part of it, yes, but I do think they're
equities
connected.
were hitting all-time highs in the midst of the clashes.
All right, it's a little odd. Okay, I don't think the markets are going to keep reacting positively.
I think that it's insane that market is hitting all-time high when we have the Strait of Hormuz that have been closed for 3.5 months, and the pain from that is only rippling its way through the supply chains right now, and you still have the stock market hitting all-time highs.
Positively, I think this is the calm before
but
the
storm. The best indicator of war is oil. The first thing that will get
yes, that's true.
Is oil.
That's
and
true.
Oil is like we keep saying, "Oh, the war's going to happen. The war's going to happen." Oil is like, pop, pop, pop. Anyone that bet against it.
No, the real hold on though. I mean, we are hitting the buffers when we know that this is what the American oil executives last Friday met with the president about, and we know that American oil companies are saying that we're coming to bottom barrel here as early as July 4th. We'll start feeling those effects. So I personally think that all of the weird complete detachment from reality
that can only happen as long as there is some physical oil in the market. When you start adding actual shortages, yeah, the manipulation in the financial market and the paper market doesn't matter anymore. The prices will go up. Resume.
That we're seeing in the oil market, I think that's going to come to an end real soon if this war continues and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And I don't think the Strait of Hormuz is opening. I don't think it's opening. I think it might not be till Christmas at this point that this thing's reopening, if ever, because there's no rush by the Iranians to reopen this.
Yeah, this is part I disagree with. Is that the economic Trump is pretty weak right now, and once we get to July 4th, where this starts, and over the month of July and August, the rest of the world is going to freak out once oil goes up another 50%. And there's going to be pressure from the rest of the world, huge pressure on Trump to make a deal with Iran. And not only the rest of the world, Republicans, they're going to panic when gas prices go over $6 a gallon. They're going to be, except for maybe the neocons, but the neocons are going to be outweighed by everyone else that's up for re-election. Do a deal with Iran, open the Strait of Hormuz, do whatever is necessary, is the message that's going to be given to Trump from everyone. And it's going to be, no matter how much influence Israel thinks it has over U.S. politics, $6-7 a gallon gas, that is a much bigger impact. No amount of APAC money can make up for that. And that's when the political fireworks will start going off. And it'll probably take a month or maybe a month, 2 months, but Trump will be pressured into taking what he considers a terrible deal with Iran. The deal he's rejecting right now, Trump, he's going to be forced to take it in a month or two.
This thing, there's just none. They don't need to do it. And, I think they figure the Americans are going to get burned before we do. And I think they're probably right about that.
They are right about that. I will mention, and I have to mention this because it infuriates me, if the United States had started its blockade of Iran day one, and it was a fully enforced blockade with no leakage, then we'd be in a much different situation. It would be a lot more even over who has the upper hand or not, because Iran would be under huge economic pain. And going into, and then the 6 months going up to August, they would be near the breaking point too. Difference is this time, this war, is Trump decided to let Iran export record amount of oils at record prices for a full month and a half. And they're like, one person say they're 5 months ahead of schedule on their budget, Iran, because they made so much money, made bank in the beginning. And even though we're stopping most of their oil from going out, whatever oil that is still getting out is being sold at a much higher price. So, yeah, Iran isn't going to cave before we are. Before the oil crunch hits, and Trump is forced to capitulate.
So I had two economists early today. I think I had two. I lost track.
And by the way, that situation about U.S. not putting their blockade in place for a month and a half, that is because Trump went into this thinking it'd be over in 3 days. And there was no plan, zero plan to do for what to do if the Strait of Hormuz closed. And it took a month and a half to set up the blockade he eventually did, for them to come up with a plan, put the right assets into place, and then launch their blockade. You cannot bomb Iran's supreme leader without a rock-solid plan to deal with the closure of Strait of Hormuz. It's just political suicide.
And I was they were explaining, how many freaking water bottles do you have? Every day is a different one. They were both explaining.
This is the same one from yesterday. This is the same one.
We need to get a new one, man. A cooler looking one.
This is
I will agree that red thing is lame as fuck.
The power of nurses, man. That's my wife's nurse.
I salute her.
Oh, just become a VTuber. Then it doesn't matter what you drink out of.
I apologize. Take it back.
I do too, because she's got to put up with me.
So I asked him about this, and he said the reason the markets are reacting so positively is because of the Secretary of the Energy's Wright's comments earlier today. He said, what was the exact? Oh, he said, Energy Secretary said the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz is rising, quote, very meaningfully. That's important. Now, when you look at the chart, it doesn't show it because vessel trackers are not seeing those ships go through. The reason, though, is what the analysts are assuming is that the American blockade is not really a blockade, and they're letting a lot more ships through than they're making it out to be. And many of my guests have said that. And the reason we're not seeing them is they turn off the transponders and then go through. Yeah. So if this is true, and also Chinese demand has also dipped as well. But if this is true, the markets are taking this into consideration. They're believing Trump. They can say they're wrong, but they're believing Trump. I'm believing him as well. I really think, and I said this.
Even if the traffic is picking up, it's still a fraction of what it was before the Strait of Hormuz was closed. And so the oil crunch this summer is still going to happen.
It's a lot. That he does want to end the war. And they're betting that even Israel won't be able to drive. I asked the guy there, the fund manager.
And you have to remember, a lot of ships are not going into... what kind of oil tanker would you want to be to go through the Strait of Hormuz and take that risk right now? There's a lot of ships that just aren't doing that. Traffic is just down until Iran declares it open and U.S. lifts its blockade.
Asked him the question, like, don't you worry that Iran or Israel could drag Trump back into the war? And he said, no, even Israel, he doesn't believe they'll be able to drag them into the war. And Trump, he'll abandon Israel if that's what it takes. I know you doubt that, but these are the insiders. These are the trade. I always look at what the traders do. The ones that control billions, tens of billions of dollars. These are the people that probably have Trump's number.
A lot of these guys, I don't know your guess. I'm not saying them personally, but just generally speaking, a lot of these guys were also fully on board with the housing market and everything right up until the thing went tits up on everybody in 08. So, we got to be careful with putting, and I've consulted a lot with Wall Street for other issues that I deal with in my world. But, these guys are human. They are subject to irrational exuberance, and they're certainly subject to normalcy bias, which is always a fatal flaw of human beings. And when you're in a real paradigm shifting moment, as I believe we're in, many, many people, even the experts, are not going to see it because of the normalcy bias issue. And I think there's a lot.
Yeah, he's right about 2008 financial crisis, right up to the stock market tanking. There were still analysts out there saying everything was rosy as hell and buy stocks.
A lot of hope as well. There's a lot of hopium, as the kids say today, right? It's they don't want it to go the way that it looks like it's going.
Copium more than hopium. Copium. There's a ton of copium in the market today.
Because then they're not going to be on the wrong side of this, and so they're hoping. And so, what I think's going on with the Strait of Hormuz specifically is the U.S. Navy's counter blockade, which, let's be specific, that's what this is. This is not a blockade. This is a counter blockade. It's a very specific thing, and it was which is basically it's a reaction to the original blockade that was imposed by the Iranians toward the beginning of the war. And the reason you do it, we did the counter blockade. We did not plan for this. We did the counter blockade because we were all checkmated on all other forms of escalation.
Yeah, what he's saying exactly. We did not plan for this. The entire story of this Iran war. It would have been the counter blockade so much more effective if done day one.
At the time. So, and Trump, despite the fact that I know for a fact U.S. intelligence and senior military briefed the White House before the war began, and they said, if the Iranians feel that their regime is threatened, they will blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And it went in one ear and out the other. The president, he did not listen. So they had to react quickly without a plan. And the best they could come up with in the military and in the U.S. side was this counter blockade. It's a leaky counter blockade. We don't have enough ships. We didn't have enough ships. We still don't. And by the way, I've been writing about this a lot longer than the war's been going.
And you have to understand, it's the other side of the world from us. We can have our... yes, we can send ships over, but ships need maintenance, need to dock stuff, and none of the docks in the Middle East are safe because of Iran can easily hit anything docked in them. So we're bringing our ships all the way to the British base over here for refitting. And this is a huge area we have to patrol because Iran just has to keep this area. We're doing our blockade further out, like here, and it's a large area, and you need a large ship for it.
Going on. In general, the Navy is the smallest it's been, I believe, since the interwar years of the 20th century. We have the smallest Navy that we've had in 80 or 90 years. The U.S. is going through one of the worst shipyard crises in history. We don't have enough ships to do everything that we...
Yes, I've hammered this home too. Yeah, our Navy's in decline. We have a legacy military. I say that because we used to have 2,000 ships, military ships. That's during World War II. We made all those ships during World War II. We used to be in China, the China of the world, with huge manufacturing base, and we just cranked out ships during World War II. And since then, it fell to like 1,000, then it fell to 700, then 600, 500, and now it's at around 300 military ships. And that's still shrinking. We don't have enough ships, and it's not just Iran that we have to deal with. We have military bases around the world. We're still supposedly supposed to protect Taiwan from China, and patrol all of the Americas. We're blockading Cuba. Also, remember that, stopping oil from reaching Cuba. We're doing tons of stuff, and all of that with 300 ships.
We want to do at a time when the demand is at all-time highs. So the reason that a lot of ships are going through is partly because we physically do not have enough warships on hand to maintain the counter blockade.
But you don't need warships for this. You need Apache helicopters could do it. Most of the ships are being intercepted by
No.
Apache
You
helicopters shooting
need
the
to
motors.
have the physical. You need to have this is also another reason why the ships are getting through. You have to have the physical presence of U.S. Navy for the blockade to be truly effective. This is the whole thing, because you need to have the physical ability to run them down. You can't just rely on the air assets, and we're seeing this. The air.
You have to understand. You think, oh, why can't we just do this with a couple of ships? Well, it isn't that simple. Look at this. We're doing the blockade like out here, this area, away from Iran. There are ports here all along. Like since this is blockaded, all the supplies being brought into the United Emirates and Saudi Arabia or Qatar, it docks here, and then the food stuff is by trucks delivered to Qatar. So there's a lot of traffic, legitimate traffic that we don't want to blockade, going back and forth through the area of the U.S. blockade. And yes, there are Iranian ships trying to sneak through, but you see the Strait of Hormuz, this blockade, very little traffic there. It's easy for Iran to keep track of it. But we're dealing with this out here. And that's only the ships that have their transponders on. If the Iranian ships, they're trying to sneak through, they have their transponders turned off. And you think just flying a helicopter can identify each one of these ships that's why they're flying a helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz, is so they can identify Iranian ships that are going through here, and so they can then later be tracked and stopped. They don't shoot at the ships as part of the U.S. blockade over here. It happens out here. But Apache helicopters fly here to keep track of the ships, because there's just a ton of traffic here, and that's only the ones that you see with their transponders turned on. It's not. That's why some people say this blockade is very porous. Is just look at this ton of ships. You have a ship comes from Iran and docks over here in this part, mixes up in this big group, then it leaves. For example, if they're trying to sneak through, that's a pain in the ass to try to keep track of.
Air assets help, but the fact of the matter is that those ships, it's a leaky blockade, okay? It's not effective. This is one of the reasons why these ships are getting through. Another reason is some of these ships are probably Chinese ships. We are definitely not going to be intercepting Chinese ships. So there's probably a lot of that too. Now,
I think it's because Trump also doesn't want energy prices to spike.
Well,
I think that's the main reason.
Yes, well, I think that's a reason, but I think there are other reasons as well. It isn't just because Trump doesn't want the energy to spike. That's a reason. I think you're probably right about that, by the way. But I think there's also the fact of the matter is we were not prepared for the counter blockade that was ordered to be in.
Again, something like the counter blockade, if you want to put that in effect, it's good to start preparing 6 months ahead of time. Come up with a precise plan. You get the exact assets into place, and then it goes smoothly. But you just try to set something up like this on the fly, like in the first month and a half of the war. Of course, it's not going to be a perfect blockade.
Imposed.
True. Now, some of my guests, I don't agree with them. Some of my guests, again, economists said that the blockade was expected by Iran, and despite that, the war still went on because they assumed.
I expected blockade. Well, yeah, that's why I think Iran was rushing its ships out of right after the war started. Iran was rushing its tankers out of the Strait of Hormuz into the world. It's because I think they were expecting the United States to blockade their oil, and because that's what I would do. It makes sense. Why would you, if you're at war with Iran, why would you let it export its oil at record prices for a month and a half? That's stupid.
They assumed. They thought that worst case scenario, Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, but we're a net exporter of oil and gas. So for us, relatively for the U.S. economy, it's better than other economies. That's the explanation to my guests have made.
That is probably.
I'm saying I agree, but this is.
Yeah, I mean, I could see some top people in the U.S. government. I mean, we've seen that talking point sort of trotted out there. You know that it's really a European problem reopening the strait. It doesn't affect us. As if nobody ever briefed these guys on the fact that the oil market and the natural gas market, energy market, is a globally traded good. So of course
it affects the U.S. It affects the U.S. It's not about in absolute terms. It does. In relative terms, it affects other countries worse. So what the U.S. could do is sign long-term.
I got it. And they're not wrong that it's affecting Europe. It's affecting Asia in many respects worse than here.
It is affecting other places worse than here, like Japan. 90% of their oil comes from the Persian Gulf. That before the war. So somewhere like that, that's importing 90% of their oil from the Persian Gulf. It's absolutely fucked when the Persian Gulf gets closed. I will say one thing for Iran, for Japan, is they have 10 months of oil reserves, a huge supply. And it makes sense. If you're completely dependent on oil imports, having a huge buffer makes sense. But still, other countries all the countries in Asia around this place got their oil from the Gulf because it was the closest place and cheapest place. It made sense. And all these countries are really hurt. India, including India. So yes, relatively to other countries, the United States further away is less impacted, but it's still going to be hit hard.
But the fact is, it's going to have knock-on effects that will harm the economy.
Absolutely.
At a politically inconvenient time. I mean, again,
Agree.
November is the midterms, and
I have to add, Trump's deciding to start this war when he did is the worst possible time for politically, because it's good. The full impact of the oil shortage will hit right about the midterms. Going into the midterms, terrible for Trump.
I am not convinced that the
stupid.
Republicans are going to win anything, which means
I've been saying Republicans are going to lose the midterms since day one of the war. That's why I'm so fucking upset at this stupid Iraq war. Is because Trump fucked Republicans over in this absolutely idiotic war.
the President Trump, his political existence is very much in jeopardy, because if the Democrats get the kind of majorities I think they're going to get, and you can talk to Robert Barnes more about this, but if the Democrats get the kind of majority I think they're going to get, Trump's getting, at the very least, impeached, maybe not removed from office, but he's going to get gutted politically so that he'll be a lame duck. So this whole thing it's bizarre that this happened the way it did when it did.
Yeah, I think if it was the
And Trump deserves it, because he gave the decision to bomb Supreme Leader. It was he should have been smart enough to see this. Before the war, saw that they'd close Strait of Hormuz. It'd be a disaster for the United States. I honestly believe it's the worst, most costly political decision of any president ever in U.S. history. Of course, at least in the last 50 years or 100 years, and at least in the last 100 years. I can't think of anything that's even close to just how bad millions will starve because of Trump's decision to bomb Iran. That's happening next year, by the way, because of fertilizer shortages now.
Iranians down and get. I do think it's the Iranians. If it was the Iranians,
Well, they seem to have admitted it. What you read,
Yeah,
I mean,
but
that
think
sounds
it
like an
wasn't,
admission.
but I don't think it was approved by the leadership. I think it was a lone wolf that did it. Maybe he saw an opportunity and hit it because they have that mosaic structure. And
Right.
then instead of they showed solidarity and resilience because their statements were very vague. They didn't deny it. They didn't take responsibility. It was something along the lines.
Yeah, maybe.
The initial statements before this one were vague, implying that hey, this was part of a military operation.
It
I
could
think
very
it was
well
a
be
lone wolf.
mosaic
I
on
agree
display.
with you. It is a bit odd because unless Iran thinks that. Maybe Iran sees Trump's weakness. They see Trump is desperate to get out of this, and they think they can get more out of him than they already
Well,
have.
they also, though, see the fact that despite all of the military hardware we brought to bear, we did not succeed in achieving our objectives militarily. So now we're in a really bad spot where they do think Trump is trying to hit the chicken switch. And then at the same time, they don't believe that they have to fear the American military anymore because we've basically exhausted all of our conventional options against them. Now, I think that we still have a couple of moves, but I would not recommend doing them. But the bottom line is the Iranians think that we have basically exhausted our options to affect.
Other reasons this war was a mistake. Haven't reiterated this lately, so I'll say it. Starting a war with very little public support in the United States. And this is a big deal. Even Trump with his stupid Iraq war, he went before Congress and convinced a majority of Americans to support the Iraq war before it happened. Even he did that. Of course, he did that by lying endlessly about weapons of mass destruction, but at least he got public support. You start a war against Iran without public support, you have zero ability to take casualties. It makes even thinking about a ground operation of any type ludicrous, because you get 1,000 U.S. dead and people will riot in the United States because our tolerance for losses are so low. So that's starting a war from a position of weakness. And then number two, without no plan for if there isn't a regime change in 3 days. Like having that blockade ready day one would have been a game changer, at least in terms of the negotiations and getting a better deal. But yeah, so there was no plan. And three, the timing right before the midterms. You gave Iran a way to win. When was the last time the United States went to war with a country and the other country actually had a way to win? hold the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months. Iran wins. They have a clear path to victory, and they know it. Because hold the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months, Democrats win the midterms, Trump's impeached, and Iran has directly regime changed the United States.
A political outcome that's not amenable to them. And so they no longer have the fear of us. They no longer have the respect for us that they once did. They now are driving this thing. And I don't think they have any inclination to seek a deal. I think what they would prefer now is to basically force a situation where the U.S. military...
What Iran wants, what they really want, probably more than anything, is to make sure they're not attacked again. They were attacked last year during the 12-day war. They agreed to a ceasefire. Less than a year later, Trump is attacking them again. What they don't want to do is to agree to some type of deal with Trump, and then next year after the midterm, Trump decides to attack them again. And so how do they prevent this from happening? Well, a lot of people right now are talking about, well, there could be some type of clause in the deal. Iran wants some type of guarantee not to be attacked. Well, yeah, that's all good and all, but there's a better way. Hold the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months. Make it such a cost for the world economy that no one ever thinks about attacking Iran again. I mean, they do that, and next year, Japan hears that Trump is thinking about bombing Iran again. I guarantee Japan will go nuts, for just as an example, to stop that from happening. Put all the pressure they can. And every other country that's going to be devastated by this oil shock. It will be such a cost to the world economy that Iran will be untouchable. No one will dare even think about attacking them. And all they have to do to accomplish that, hold the Straits of Hormuz closed 6 months, and that the oil pain really hit.
Position in the region collapses under itself, and we basically have to go away all over the horizon and leave the region in shame, not unlike how we left Afghanistan in 2021. And I think at this point, that's where this is headed.
And that's another reason why I give August as the date that this will be solved, is that once Iran has established that deterrence, and once it has hold the Straits of Hormuz closed for 6 months, they've already attained one of the things they really wanted, like strong deterrence that they won't be attacked again. And they are much more open to a negotiation and a settlement and a deal at that point, because they will have established their deterrence. And at the same flip side, Trump will be ultra desperate by that point, with the entire world pressuring him to do a deal. And under that scenario, I see a deal happening.
I think there's going to be a deal. I think that the best case scenario is going to be that we just basically implode, leave, let the region figure itself out. It'll probably be for the best for everybody. The alternative, though, is the nightmare scenario where we keep going up.
The reason that won't happen, I can answer this already, is Trump politically can't do that. If he just walks away from it right now, that's the same as like giving Iran the nuke, because Iran will. If Trump just walks away, yes, Iran is 100% going to get a nuke, 100%. The only reason they wouldn't get a nuke is if there's a deal with the United States, they get sanction relief and unfrozen assets. That's the only. You need to have that type of deal to prevent Iran from getting a nuke, which means a deal with the United States. And so if Trump just walks away, well, then probably maybe next week, Iran tests a nuke. And now Trump has started an idiotic war, completely fucked over the world economy, devastated U.S. bases in the region, humiliated the U.S. military by failing to defeat Iran. And now Iran has a nuke. It has a nuke because of the war Trump decided to start. It's just absolute humiliation to Trump on a level. It won't just be me saying that the Iran war was the worst decision any president has ever made. It will be everyone.
The escalation ladder, and then we're in something very, very different.
Yeah. How do you think Iran, before we go to Israel, and have you seen what's been happening in Belfast? I haven't had time to cover that. Have you seen what's happening there? The riots, the burning down of...
Yeah, that's related to the migration issue, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't covered it. I've just been watching it. I haven't had time to cover it.
So listen, I would recommend talking to a buddy of mine, an old timer, but a good guy, Michael Walsh, who lives in Ireland. He has a very healthy breakdown on what's going on there.
What's his name?
Michael Walsh. It's a very, very Irish name. He's in
Ireland?
Yeah, he is part of the year. I don't know if he is right this second, but I know he's part of the year in Ireland. He's a very well-known writer. I think his most recent book is Oh, I don't remember now, but it's on. It's on. Yeah, ping him. I can maybe help you.
I've told the team now. I've told the team. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's go to.
But anyway, real quick, I'll just comment. This is obviously about the migration issue, but it's being stoked because I know for a fact there are fuel lines right now and shortages already in Ireland, and so we know these two issues go hand in hand, right? When things economically start imploding, the culture starts imploding too because they can't sustain itself. So I would say, if I were guessing, I would say that if the shortages become as pronounced as I think they will be globally, that you're going to see more things like Belfast over the next 6 to 8 months.
I'm just making a note to look into the island Belfast later, maybe for tomorrow.
It's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And I think Europe and parts of Asia are the canaries in the coal mine for that.
Who's the politician with the famous line?
Yeah. It's funny, even why there's going to be this huge oil crisis in Europe. Europe is still sending tons of drones to Ukraine so that they can attack Russian oil infrastructure, making the entire global crisis worse. That's how utterly, I won't say stupid, let's say traitorous EU leaders are, that they are actively fucking over their own people by going after Russian oil at this time of crisis.
Hungry man is an angry man.
No, that might have been a politician, but that was my teacher that was my teacher from Kenya when I was in high school.
Yes.
He used to say that to us, and we used to laugh. But the more you think about it, you think, wow, that's actually really, really,
absolutely true.
It's true. Absolutely. And then and then I think Lenin or Trotsky said something to the effect of the revolutions march on empty stomachs, I think was the line. And maybe your audience could correct me. I think I'm generally getting it, but there's something like that as well.
There's another one that, like, every country is just like 3 meals away from a revolution, as in 3 missed meals, and people riot.
Well, in history that was said.
So, before we go to Israel, one more question. How do you think Iran will retaliate? Bahrain, Kuwait, like they did before, more significant, less significant?
Well, I think the fact that we're asking this question is very indicative of the kind of escalation dominance that they have. They have a coterie of options, right? I mean, our options are somewhat limited. We can either blow up more schools with girls in it, or we can blow up some radar towers on Kishem Island. So, I mean, to me, I think that they're going to retaliate. I think that I don't think they're going to hit like Saudi Arabia. I think there is a gentleman's agreement right now between the Saudis and the Iranians that.
But I've seen satellite images that the Saudi air base was used.
But why was that? We know why. I mean, you and I talked about this. That's because it was being used by refuelers to aid in the supposedly Israeli-only strikes.
No, I don't think in that one it was used in this one. And the Israeli one, I haven't seen any satellite images of that base being used. I think you did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's all blurring together, to be honest with you now. The whole thing is blurring together. But the bottom line is, I do believe the Iranians will retaliate. And I think they have a coterie of options. They could pick whatever. It's Baskin 31 flavors of ice cream,
Yes, they have so many targets.
So Israel struck Belfast, so Belfast then retaliated against Iran.
Be careful, they might say you're fake news.
It's all melting together. I'm just a bit lost. On the Israeli front, something interesting happened today. Did you see the what do you call it? The Hezbollah member or the Lebanese gunman that entered Israel?
No, I didn't see this. No
one saw it. How bizarre is this? Not many people.
That's
saw
also
it.
because you're in the region. You're getting the regional headlines too. I don't think
we're the region. I'm not in Israel, man. I'm saying I'm in Dubai.
I know you're from the region.
No, I'll tell you why you didn't see it.
I'm in Florida, man. Okay,
Florida.
I got it from the same groups I use. But no, so that was pretty significant in the morning. I woke up to this. Mm-hmm. That was even, in my view, more significant than the Apache helicopter being down. So I saw it was initially pretty crazy reports. A gunman infiltrated, was shot down.
It ended up being more of a nothing burger in that it's possibly one person went in, maybe he's already fled, no biggie.
Was shot by the Israelis. Jonathan, if you could show the images of the gunman, but more importantly, where he was shot. I know I've showed it on previous interviews. Then there were reports in Hebrew media of other gunmen having infiltrated and locked down in 2 villages. They were looking for the gunman. It was all over it was heavily covered on Hebrew media in Hebrew. That's where he was found and shot down by the.
Which part of Israel?
I didn't think you'll ask. Let me get the notes. So it was shut down up north, just on the border, just to be clear. Shot on the border.
So they're going to say it's Hezbollah.
They did say it's Hezbollah now, but they didn't make a big deal out of it, just to be clear. I thought they'd make a big deal out of it. Then we got reports, show the guy's face. We got reports that the person, his name is Hamza Hamoud, and he's not part of Hezbollah, and he was acting as a lone wolf. Hezbollah has not taken responsibility. And relatively quickly, the media kind of eased up on the story. Didn't get much crazy reaction, because it seems it was a lone man. This is the guy.
Okay, I did see this picture, yeah.
There was one man that infiltrated, and there was no other infiltrations. But it triggered PTSD because of October 7th. Also, it's the first infiltration since 2006, since the Lebanon-Hezbollah war. So first infiltration.
And that war did not go well for Israel, if you remember.
Badly, very badly. Yeah. Now, Malcolm Nance, I'll reference him again. He made a very good point. He thinks he said he's not surprised it's a lone gunman. He was wearing Crocs slippers, so it doesn't look like a soldier. And Hezbollah, he said Hezbollah doesn't need to send men to infiltrate Israeli territory. They have drones.
He's right. Yeah, he's right. He's right. And in fact, look, right now, Hezbollah, again, like the Iranians generally, Hezbollah is kind of in the driver's seat here.
I think both Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, it's gotten to the point where public opinion in the war is turning so much towards that side, against Israel, that they are probably more conscious of civilians for that reason. Like, where they're winning the hearts and minds, let's not attack civilians and change that. Let's just... And there's tons of military targets to go after when you're facing the United States and Israel. So why go after civilians? So I do believe that, Hamas is a different story, sort of. They're, I think they're more extreme and less rational.
Terms of for you. Sorry to interrupt you, man. Cruise missiles were just launched towards Iran.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Look, this is an escalation spiral. This is not a controlled thing. This is going to go on. The Iranians in the next 24 hours will retaliate. I'm sure the Israelis will get in on the action. This is not ending in a deal. This is ending in the next level of fighting. And I was going to say at the beginning.
And so we will soon find out if that report about Iran having a nuke is true or not. Because if there's an escalation spiral where there's like everyday bombing, like there was during the first half of the war, they'll test a nuke, because at this point in the war, the first month and a half didn't produce anything. So you go back to a full-scale hot war, there's danger of a U.S. or Israeli nuke this time, much more than last, and so it'd be safe on the Iranian side to demonstrate a nuke of their own. Hi, Proton Stale. Hello. Yeah, it's we're back in another escalation spiral. U.S. has launched strikes on Iran.
But I held off because it's, but it is interesting that we targeted Qashem Island. Qashem is one of those three main islands that at the beginning of the war, by week 3, they were ruminating possibly landing Marines on to conduct sea control operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but before we logged on, I did see RT reposted a supposed ABC News story in which Trump stated, and this was in the last 2 hours it was posted, he stated to ABC News that America's going to end up with half of Iran's oil after we do a Marshall Plan-like policy for just to be reconstruction.
Exactly. Yeah, he was.
That's insane. United States is not ending up with any of Iran's oil. That's just wishful thinking. But let's hear what Mario has to say right now.
Asked, "Will you help Iran? Will you help Iran reconstruct?" And he said,
"Very
yes,
odd."
We're
very odd. It's just very odd, though, is my point, that he would be talking like this. It just, to me,
he was asked about it.
I know, but it was just very odd, is my point. And Qashem Island, I've spoken to enough people who are military experts who use the term Gallipoli when likening either a landing on Karg Island or Qashem Island. And then I see we're hitting them again. I understand they've got the IRGC. There's a command and control facility there. There's logistical reasons why we would hit in an airstrike only. But
Marshall Plan heavily favored the United States. Would you believe that?
Then you start to think, is this a prelude to something more? Because Trump, I don't believe, is fully driving this thing. And I think Trump is being dragged up the escalation ladder. And if that's the case, who knows where this ends? It's not going to end just because the president says he wants it to end, because so far it hasn't. And he's the president, and he said he's wanted it to end, supposedly. And here we are 101 or so days into the war.
I feel like the Americans have to get back their escalation dominance in some way. I know.
That's where you don't start a war where you don't have escalation dominance. It's on the other side of the world, and it's too late. All our bases are destroyed here. You had to have better air defenses. You had to have figured out a way to deal with Shahed drones. That's what you really need to do. On top of closure of Strait of Hormuz, if we had a way to get rid of 90% of its Sharan drones and actually protect the Gulf states, our bases would still be relatively intact. It would be an entire different ball game. But we didn't have a plan to deal with Now, honestly speaking, considering they have tens of thousands of Shahed drones, it would be difficult to stop them. But I don't know, an AI-controlled line of turrets that just automatically shoots down anything in the sky. That's honestly what I think we're headed towards. So that's what I would do to try to figure out how to stop drones.
Or that Trump wants to walk away. But I do think that the Americans have shown way too much weakness. They've overdone it. So
Here's the
every time
problem.
they de-escalate time and time again.
Here's the problem, though, Mario. Conventionally speaking, and we've exhausted all of our options, and so it's not.
Our ammunitions are completely drained. We use 50% of our Tomahawk missiles. 50%. We need some of them to defend the homeland and to defend Taiwan. We can't afford to go below. Already 50% is too low.
It's not just a question of displaying weakness. It's a question of validating the assumption by Iran that a conventional expeditionary force, of which the U.S. military is not conditioned to fight the kind of unconventional, asymmetrical war of attrition in the target country's backyard. And I would just add very carefully or clearly here, and I said this to the Air Force last month when I was at the facility in the U.S. state of Georgia, everything you're seeing here is a snapshot microcosm of what any God help us war with China will look like over Taiwan. And the fact of the matter is you are seeing the collapse of the U.S. military's expeditionary model of warfare. We are not able to affect strategically our end goals. And so
I would say that it'd be 100 times worse trying to fight China over Taiwan. China has more missiles than Iran, and they're more accurate. And you have this entire country. Yeah, we can't strike deep into anywhere in China. So it's a lot deeper than Iran. We would not win a war with China over Taiwan. Of course, we might inflict significant losses to China, but yeah, this proves that we ain't protecting Taiwan if China really decides to go for it.
I agree that we look weak, but I think it's because in this specific case, we are very weak in terms of being able to handle the kind of fight that we're being presented with. I can't hear you, man.
There's more explosions, man.
Yep.
There's more explosions. So let me.
I would be prepared for this going on all
That's
night.
surprising. That is surprising to me. So now well, I'm glad you have 4 hours today, so we're going to be here for a while. Explosions in Jas County, southern Iran, according to Mirror News. At least 3 explosions have been reported, according to local sources. Okay, that's surprising. It doesn't change my position. I feel like the Americans. No, the reason
Mario's always trying to be the optimist.
Stick to your guns, Mario. I think we need an optimist in this thing.
I'll tell you why. I do think I stand by my ground because I do think what I just said. They do need to establish some form of escalation dominance. Not even escalation dominance, escalation strength, non-pussy position. Like they've been way too weak for a while. Look at what the Americans did. The Americans are 10 times stronger than the Israelis, 20 times stronger than the Israelis. The American got struck. They de-escalate time and time again. The Israelis get struck. They fire all these cruise missiles and airstrikes. You can see
there's a reason here, and this gets back to our strategic objective issue, the mismatch. For Israel, they perceive this is an existential struggle. For Iran, they perceive this is an existential struggle. What is this for Uncle Sam? It's not an existential. This isn't existential. We've got.
It's a stupid mistake of Trump that wasn't thinking seriously about anything and thought this wouldn't be another Venezuela for him, an easy win over in 3 days, and he didn't have the fucking clue what he was getting himself and Republicans into.
20 other, issues that we're dealing with. So, in my view, and by the way, one of the reasons I brought up the leaky blockade is because the force in general, our force is stretched and strained. Okay, we are at a critical moment in terms of our force structure, and we're doing way too much globally. It's way too much of a field that we're trying to cover with a finite amount of forces. So my point here is...
Yeah, I'll give you another example. Cuba, doing an oil blockade of Cuba. Shifts from that, we could have a tighter blockade in Iran. Just saying. But Trump wanted to do Cuba too.
Okay, we look weak in terms of escalation, but we can't afford to escalate, because if we escalate and it still doesn't translate to a resetting of the table in our favor, then guess what? Now we're stuck at a higher level of escalation with an enemy that is going to hit back, and we are not in a good position to defend ourselves.
And also, 50% of our Tomahawk missiles. We go down to 25. Maybe we should just take Taiwan, wrap it up in a nice pretty ribbon, and give it to China at that point.
So that's why you don't escalate in this position, because we don't have the backing to be able to actually follow through effectively on that which we're trying to do.
Okay, I'll counter with the following. Number one, yes, it is not existential. We don't need this war. The US doesn't need this war. But
Soon. I think that might be one of the first places, because they've already tried and kick out U.S. bases. And you have a lot of dollars coming back to the United States, and you have the beginning of an inflationary spiral that'll take out the dollar. Of course, no one ever talks about the amount of dollars floating around in the world and what would happen if that came back. And I think some planners in the United States know about it, and that's why they were going along with Netanyahu's plan to attack Iran.
and if the US shows way too much weakness, that could have existential-like impact globally in terms of the image of the US and US projection. Of
It already has.
Number one.
Already
Number
has.
two, yeah, but
Yes.
you can limit it though by not being a pussy when one of your helicopters was down. That's a pretty significant. Pretty significant.
Mario's really bitter about that. The U.S. loses a helicopter and chooses to hugely escalate the war, and Mario's always hoping for peace. Well, he lives in Dubai, which has been one of right in the crosshairs of Iran. He was half joking before he says, "Go out and order water for me," because we just bombed some water reservoirs in Iran, and that might retaliate by bombing desalination plants in the Gulf.
You have to worry about that now.
and number two, we talk about worried about not getting stuck into further escalations. Well, the difference is, just remember, when Israel struck Iran heavily, Iran could have escalated again, but they de-escalated. Their second attack was significantly lower, which shows Iran want to establish escalation dominance, but to a certain extent, because we're talking about Irani, not talking about the Chinese military or the Russian military. So they do have their limitations. They have the upper hand. They want strategically. And I think the Americans know Iran can't afford to go through another war. They prefer, let's say, not to go through another war like the 40-day war. So both sides don't want it. And that's why the Americans have more room, and I think even feel the necessity to show at least a bit of strength in the current back and forth.
But what happens? But here's the problem. Here's the problem with this.
I'm surprised there's a second wave, though. Jesus.
Well, so here's the problem. If you escalate,
Second wave. So, second wave attacks against Iran over a helicopter where the pilots didn't even die. And Trump could have easily said, oh, it was a malfunction and no need to escalate. This was an escalation of choice by Trump.
as you're saying, and you still, as the superpower, supposedly, can't actually change the political end state to one of your liking, then you've just negated the whole thing of not appearing, to use your word, as a pussy. Because now you look like a pussy and a fool, because you've just escalated and you're not still changing the political end state of the conflict. And that is the problem here, is that nothing we or the Israelis have done has changed the political end state. And the political end state for us and the Israelis...
No, I disagree. I disagree completely. Strait of Hormuz is now clearly in Iranian control. It wasn't before, now it is. So the political end state has changed from before the war. It just changed in the wrong direction.
has been, and I know you don't agree with this, but it has been regime change, and we are definitely not getting that.
I do agree. I think the goal was regime change. We agree, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was.
But we're not getting that. Then the other goal was denuclearization. We are not getting that. The other goal was getting rid of the ballistic missile and drone threat.
Yeah, we're not getting that, but America still thinks we are. Nugstaku, we watched him the other day. He still thinks Trump is preventing Iran from getting a nuke. I wonder what he would do if he found out Iran already had a nuke and it was because Trump decided to attack. Yeah, that'd be a fun video to react to. Anyway, yeah, there's reports that Iran already has a nuke, and there's indications that it's true.
Not happening. Get rid of the Navy. Guess what? Apparently the Navy's still around. Get rid of the Air Force. Guess what? The U.S. Intelligence Service has already come out and said, it turns out their Air Force is still there. So my point is that we have not affected the political end state, which is the whole point of war. War is
We gave them control of Strait of Hormuz. You should mention that.
an extension of politics through other means. It's Clausewitz. It's ancient, theory here. We haven't affected it. And so you could keep escalating, but every time you escalate, the bigger the gun you bring out, if you don't change that political end state to your favor, you actually are hurting yourself because the rest of the world is looking at you going, you're not really doing anything. And so
you're wasting your ammunition, and the ammunition you're using against Iran and failing to do anything, that's ammunition you don't have available to defend Taiwan, or defend the homeland, or to project your power anywhere else in the world.
My view is you don't escalate unless you know you have a very good chance of flipping the script in your favor and getting that political end state. And I don't think anything we're doing...
He's talking about rational actors here. He's not talking about democracies, the things we have, and the concerns of politicians, which is there's an election coming in Israel, the election coming in the United States. For Trump, he doesn't want to escalate because of that election. But at Netanyahu, he wants to escalate because of to be seen as strong, and he's facing corruption charges. So, and if Trump is forced to choose between accepting a bad deal and escalating, I think he'll escalate.
Have done thus far is going to accomplish that, because for the Iranians, this is existential. For us, it's an inconvenience. So, whoever cares more wins. That's how this works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm pretty surprised there's a second wave.
There might even be a third wave. I mean, none of this surprises me. I did hear maybe
2 waves of attack against Iran for a helicopter malfunction. Well, from what I've seen, it really was an FPV drone that probably took out this helicopter. That's why the crew survived. An FPV drone, its charges it has, it's enough to damage the engine of a helicopter, but not completely destroy it, and that's why it probably was able to land on the water. But still, Trump could have easily claimed it was a malfunction. And then there's no need to escalate. And if we really are that near to a deal, why did he do all this?
it was Viva who said this, but somebody said to me in the last 5 hours that their sources at the White House were saying Trump is preparing for a massive retaliation this evening. So if that's
Fox News said that. Fox News
was
said
it Fox
that,
that said? Okay, I might
earlier today. Yeah.
Okay, there's some
Maybe someone else said it, but I remember Fox News reported it. There's going to be a massive explosion or something. And
yeah. So
they talk shit all the time.
Oh, one thought I had earlier that this is actually Trump is really sensitive, I think, about being called Netanyahu's bitch and escalating because Israel wants us to escalate. That makes him look like Israel's bitch. But hear me out. What happens if Iran shoots down a helicopter and Trump decides to escalate hugely over that? Then he's escalating not because he's Netanyahu's bitch. He's escalating because of the helicopter. So I think that's it. Trump doesn't want to escalate because of Israel. But if Iran gives him any kind of excuse that he can use that isn't Israel, okay, now he escalates. No one can call him Netanyahu's bitch, is his thinking. But he's still Netanyahu's bitch.
Unless I didn't.
Well, Fox News has become a lot like North Korean propaganda. So yeah, no, it definitely talks a lot of shit. But I will just say, we can have the biggest explosion in the world. It's not going to change the political end state. It's not, because the Iranians, this is life or death for them, and it's life or death for the Israelis too. At least as the Israelis.
And Iran's coastal installations are built into rocks, into the mountains. They're meant to survive bombing. They're spread out, and this won't stop Iran from controlling the Strait of Hormuz.
But I'm not saying that's necessarily an accurate interpretation. I think they're not thinking clearly, but it's definitely more serious for them than it is even for us. I mean, we could lose the entire Middle East, and we still have, the Western Hemisphere. We still have what we're doing.
No, we can't lose Middle East. Do you have any idea how many dollars? This is one of the most dollarized places in the world. Every country except Iran is using the U.S. dollar as their currency, or has their currency pegged to the dollar. We withdraw, and all the dollars in this place come back. I mean, you're talking dollar losing like 3/4 of its value just from this part of the world alone.
Doing an Indo-PACOM, so it's not like we're going to lose the world. This is not existential for us.
Barack David, by the way, I know you said you have 45 to 60 minutes. I was going to let you go at 45. Yeah. You still have a few minutes?
No, it's fine. Yeah, whatever.
Cool. So Malcolm is jumping on in 10 minutes, but I'd love to have you for another 10 minutes.
Sure, I can be for 10 minutes.
The audience is loving you and hating me because they're all...
Unless it's psyop into burning them. But no, they won't burn them. Why would they burn them when they can send them back to the United States and hurt the United States that way? I mean, you're saying burning them because they hate the United States? Well, if they hate the United States, they should... It would take one major psyop to convince people like of Iraq to relieve the United States of like a billion or two of our debt, because those dollars are that's our debt.
I agree with you that this is.
I don't know. I see some of the comments. Your audience is pretty rough on me.
Really?
Yeah, they're pretty rough on me, and that's fine.
Thanks, guys. Usually I go through the comments after the lives, not during the lives, and I start looking at.
You should see the comments when I'm on Bannon's show. Everybody in that audience hates me, so it's actually quite funny
because they're big Trump fans on there, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, and I
haven't watched Bannon in a long time actually, but apparently if everyone hates him on that show, then they're probably still pro Iran war, and it's probably not worth watching.
Supported him 3 times, but apparently that's just not enough. So,
I know, man. I told you the whole. I had Seb Gorka on my show. I supported Trump when he was fighting for free speech and fighting against lawfare and fighting against forever wars because I stood for those values. And I still support some of Trump's policies right now, especially some of his domestic policies. And I don't support other policies like this war. Obviously, that wasn't enough.
You have to take a blood oath. That's what you have to do.
It's insane.
Cut your finger.
It's wild. There were campaigns against me calling me a Zionist because of how much I criticize the Iranian.
Oh man, you just got. Yeah, look, I've been called.
Which I don't mind. I don't mind. But
it's fun. It's fun.
And they still said Gorka wants to come after me because of my critique of Israel. I'm like, for fuck's sake.
Hey, I hear that he's launching a counterterrorism investigation or whatever into you and Tucker and everybody that disses Trump. Well,
so bizarre.
It just means you're effective. That's all.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but like, let me
go Mario.
When they do this, now obviously I stick to my beliefs. But when they do this, you know what the feeling? I'm sure others get it even more. I'm like, you know what? Fuck them. I'm going to go after them all the way and really become anti them. Well, that's not my way of doing. That's not my way of speaking. So I just stick to what I believe.
Well, what I'll just say, what I'll say real quick about Trump in general, that has been a criticism of mine from the beginning, is
Trump. When Trump went after Massey, that to me, that was an unforgivable act. And I'm very cool on Trump now.
Trump has a tendency to turn friends into enemies and enemies into fanatics. That's the unfortunate side of Trump, is, he doesn't catch more flies with honey or whatever the saying goes. I mean, he's all vinegar. He's all piss and vinegar. So,
Okay, to defend Trump a little bit, when he ran in 2016 and won, he was not the establishment. He was someone outside the system. He was a threat, and the entire media apparatus was turned against him. They manufactured the Russiagate hoax to try to impeach him. So a lot of the hate for Trump is the result of that propaganda network we call the mainstream media. And but there are legitimate reasons to be upset with Trump, too.
Anyway, though.
So Barack David is saying that the targets in this attack are air defenses and radars.
This sounds a lot like shaping operations. This does not sound, and you should ask Malcolm this. He would know. He would know more than I would.
Yeah, and what was that helicopter doing near the Strait of Hormuz to begin with? Recon for an operation, then it was shot down. I think Trump is still obsessed with trying to open the Strait of Hormuz, and so this might be precursor to some type of ground operation. Given that, yes, all the strikes the United States has been doing in the last week or two has been against defensive installations in the Strait of Hormuz, as if preparing the way for some type of ground operation. And maybe that explains it. This helicopter went down, and Trump isn't escalating things by attacking Tehran or anything. He's attacking coastal installations in the Strait of Hormuz, in addition to the attacks that had already taken place. This may be part of. He doesn't want Israel to start a general escalation, but he does want to set the stage for whatever ground operation he has in the pocket that he's working towards. That might be the scenario.
That one, but this to me sounds a hell of a lot more like shaping operations in lieu of a bigger air campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it has created a dogmatic support for Trump because, as a natural response, because for so many years, all the media accusations against Trump, you look into it, they're all bullshit. Every single one of them they take his words, they twist them. He called Mexicans rapists, for example. That claim. You look at his words, he never said that. It's that type of scenario. But the problem is when Trump becomes what he hated, on the Iran war, the amount of lies out of Trump's mouth is equal to the mainstream media at this point.
Let me put that. No, I'll ask him that.
Yeah, just ask him that. I'd be curious because I'll try to catch part of the interview. I'd be curious to know what he says about that.
Let me write it down.
And when you start lying on one topic to that extent, Tempta, you've slipped that far, you start lying on all topics. I mean, why bother, fighting the left and do huge deportation when you can just lie about deportation numbers, for example?
But yeah, I don't know if it'll only be if Iran will retaliate a lot harder this time. I think the Gulf's going to be attacked very hard.
Yeah, no, yeah, you might not have been totally wrong when you.
Yeah, and he's realizing that he lives in the Gulf. It's not a good time. But I will now be interesting to see. During this whole negotiations, I have the feeling that some Gulf nations have tried to get closer to Iran. And have done lots of, I've heard reports that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are planning to close their U.S. bases as a result of this war. Whether that's a report I've heard. We'll see later on. They're probably not going to do that mid-war, but we'll see. Gulf states, if there's any of them that have been trying to get closer to Iran, they might try to accelerate that to avoid getting hit in retaliation for this latest round of violence.
You said buy extra water because it's
It was only, just to be clear, it was only one reporter to Arab News that said 2 water tanks were attacked.
Yeah.
I doubt the US would have attacked us. Like, come on, that doesn't. There's some things that make sense.
I wouldn't have believed we would have willingly double tapped a school of girls. So at this point,
Yes, we did do that. We double tapped a girls' school.
Think it was intentional? No.
listen, man, I don't know, but the point is that
Really, the
it's
school- hold
crazy.
on. You think the school-
I
no, the
think
school
I
was
think we were using an AI system that did a metadata.
agreed.
That's what I think happened. But the fact of the matter is that nobody.
But yes, okay, for the first strike, I could maybe buy that. But why the double tap if it was AI?
Bothered to double check the arithmetic before we launched. That is scary. That is
No,
scary.
unless they double checked it, still got it wrong. So human error happens.
Even that is scary.
Schools were attacked by accident by
Yeah.
multiple countries before
Right.
AI existed.
Right.
So-
No, I know that. Usually the Israelis were very effective at it. But I understand
Yes.
that. But nothing. What I'm saying, Mario, is nothing would surprise me anymore. That's what I'm saying.
I always look at things as where's the strategic benefit. So, for example, whenever there was attack, and by the way, just for the audience, we're hearing reports of explosions now in Nahavand, Western Iran, near Hamadan.
Are you seeing what they're hitting? Are you seeing what?
No,
specifically?
too early.
Yeah.
Too early. They'll just see speculation now.
Yeah.
Kashab Island, there was an explosion there. An explosion has been reported near Bandar Abbas.
Okay.
Well, we should
Yeah,
check-
this to me is shaping up. I think we're getting ready to do a much longer. I think we might be doing a much longer. Yeah, I would ask Malcolm about that because I'd be very curious to know the answer.
It's a very good question.
Yeah, well, I have my moments, Mario.
A shaping operation.
So you think this is all
I mean,
Trump
shaping the defense, shaping the terrain so we can go in.
talk about a deal being near, etc.?
It's all bullshit. I think it's all.
Trick Iran.
Yeah, I think this is what.
Attacking in the middle of negotiations, or when we were on the verge of a deal. When we attacked them last year, we were on the verge of a deal when this current Iran war began, and so being right on the verge of a deal, it could be like even Trump code words for like that's why I was so mad at Netanyahu. We're on the verge of a deal. It means I was on the verge of launching an operation against Iran, and your escalation is fucking that up. That could be. That could be what it is. I think Trump might try something really stupid soon. That's the feeling I have now.
He does, and I wouldn't be surprised if Vance was in on it, going on Fox News this afternoon saying, "Oh, we really like the deal that we were seeing," and maybe Vance was part of the whole psyop. I don't know, but this whole thing smells to high heavens. It smells, and I think, by the way, I think the Iranians are realizing that there's no negotiating with the Americans. And you want to talk about knock-on effects?
That's why the only way out of this will be in August, September, with just basically capitulation from the United States. So it won't be a negotiation. It would be like Iran says, here's the deal, here, accept it, and we'll be forced to accept it. There'll be no negotiations at that point.
You think the Russians are not looking at this going, we are never going to seriously take any American from the Trump administration seriously when they say let's negotiate?
No, but Brandon, 2 seconds. Well, I think this is normal. Attacks happen during negotiations. I know you might hate me now. I'm going to watch the comments. They're going to be attacking me now. But listen, when they were negotiating in Alaska, Russia was escalating on the front.
I know that they
Does
were.
it make It always
I understand that.
common in warfare. You escalate during negotiations, pressure the other side.
But the Trump administration for the last year has a tendency to use diplomatic talks to, as a feint, begin wider not shaping, not leverage getting.
Yeah.
I mean, we initiated this war under the pretext of negotiations in February. We were supposed to be negotiating with the regime in Tehran. And whatever you think of the regime, the fact is, we said, okay, we're going to negotiate, and then bombs drop. So, and it was a decapitation strike, no less. So, you know, we played dirty, and that's okay, that's going to happen. But, you know, it definitely, I don't think
we've played dirty so many times. Iranians have never seen us play fair.
It has a chilling effect on diplomacy everywhere when the current administration is involved, because the rest of the world is thinking, well, they may want to talk to us. What does that mean? Just going to get us into a position to kill us easier? I don't know. This is not how you want to do diplomacy, not as the superpower. You don't have to. You know, you don't have to. You're the superpower. You don't have to.
If you truly are the superpower, but I don't think the United States is a superpower anymore. It still has marginally the biggest military for now. I think that'll change in a year or two with China. It's that close. But yeah, we're nowhere near as domineering as we used to be.
I have to play that way all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think this is.
But I'm starting to get a bit more worried now. So now I'm a bit more worried. I still stand by my belief, but I'm doubting them a lot more. We'll see. I think we'll see what exactly how extensive.
We'll find out in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Exactly, because we know what's been targeted. We don't know to what extent. So we'll find out soon.
2 rounds of strikes from the United States. There's definitely going to be a big Iranian response to that.
It's been quiet now. There's not many reports of explosions, just to be clear. So this one seems less extensive so far. It just started. Less extensive than the one before.
Well, stick to your guns. Stick to your guns, because I'd rather you be right than me be right.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll have Malcolm in.
That's like, I'm sure there's people in the Trump administration telling that to Trump. Stick to your guns. Stick to your guns. If your guns means sticking to wishful thinking, it's not good advice.
In 3 to 4 minutes, I think 3 to 4 minutes we'll have you live with Malcolm. I'll ask him that question. I'll let you. You'll be listening to see what he knows.
Yeah.
But as a final question to wrap it up, if I had to ask you now, how do you think Iran will retaliate now that there's a second wave as well? What would you expect? I know you're not speculating, but
no, I mean, I don't mind. It's fine. I would say that there's going to be a much bigger sweeping set of attacks now. They might target the Arab states. They might decide to slam Israel even harder. I mean, you know, the fact is, I think they have to retaliate now. And every time there's a retaliation, whether the other side thinks, okay, this is just part of it, this is choreographed, you know, at some point the chance for mistakes becomes very real, and misinterpretation. And that's the real risk here is uncontrolled escalation because of misunderstanding. So I think they're going to massively retaliate. I think it'll probably be another drone and missile swarm. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, if that report is true, that those water facilities were hit, I would be very worried about desalination plants in these Arab countries, or in Israel as well.
Especially Bahrain, because Israel's greatest ally in the Middle East, Bahrain, United Emirates, misspoke, where Mario is. Desalination plant there would be the first ones to be hit, I would suspect.
Well,
you know, this is a line that wasn't crossed at the peak of the wall.
I know that.
Barely.
I know that.
Two desalination plants were bombed during the very start of the war. United States, Israel bombed one in Iran, and one in Bahrain was bombed.
I'm telling you, this is not part of some pre-arranged, choreographed, you know, I'm going to hit here and then you can hit there and then we'll call it a day. This to me looks like the whole thing's gone sideways now and nobody has control over it, except maybe the Iranians, who I think now want to go up because they think they can beat the Americans and the Israelis.
Mm-hmm. Right, man. Well, we'll see what happens. Appreciate it. Thank you as always. I'll ask the question to Malcolm in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Always good to see you. Thank you for your time.
See you. Bye-bye.
See you, Brandon.
All right. Well, that's the situation in Iran. That was 3 hours ago, so 2 hours ago was what we just heard. Okay, looks like we'll be able to get the Iranian reprisal. We got the gist of it. Iran attacked Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. Those may have been where the fighters took off for the strikes against Iran. And now Iran and the United States have bombed each other pretty heavily in the last few hours. Let's see what happens next. If Trump is in an escalatory mood, the war might just be back on completely, 100%. Or this all might be to prepare the stage for some type of operation in the Strait of Hormuz. We'll have to wait and see. In any case, I don't expect peace to materialize magically anytime soon. I'd say August is my timetable. I'm going to stick to it. Alright, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Can watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye.